hand slammed flat on a white tablecloth. Silverware rattled. A glass of water tipped over and spilled across the polished wood. A man in a plain gray shirt and worn-out sneakers had just sat down at a table meant for someone else. Someone important. The waiter moved fast. He stepped right up to the table, chest puffed out, chin high. He looked the man up and down. Wrinkled shirt. No watch. No reservation. He snapped his fingers and pointed toward the door. This section is reserved, sir. You need to leave. The man did not move. He did not argue. He just sat there, hands folded, perfectly calm. That man was Jackie Chan. And the waiter standing over him had just made the biggest mistake of his entire life. So what happened in the next 10 minutes that cost him his career? Stay with me on this one. The restaurant was called Maison Lune. One of those places in downtown Vancouver where a glass of wine costs more than most people's entire dinner. White tablecloths on every table. Candles that smelled like bergamot. A hostess who looked at your shoes before she looked at your face. The place had a reputation. And the staff wore that reputation like armor. The waiter's name was Daniel Pratt. 24 years old. Sharp jaw, slicked back hair. A fitted black vest over a pressed white shirt. He had been working at Maison Lune for about 8 months, and in that time he had made himself into something of a gatekeeper. Daniel had a theory about people. He believed you could tell everything you needed to know about a person in 3 seconds flat. The watch, the shoes, the posture. If those 3 things lined up right, you were worth his time. If they did not, you were not. And here is the thing. The managers let him get away with it. Because Daniel was genuinely good at the sales part of the job. He upsold wine like a trained sommelier. He remembered regulars by name. He made the big spenders feel like royalty. Tips poured in week after week. The restaurant loved him for it. So nobody ever told him to check himself. Nobody ever said, Daniel, maybe slow down on the snap judgments. Nobody pulled him aside and told him that arrogance dressed up as efficiency is still arrogance. That night was a Tuesday. The restaurant was about half full. A few couples at window tables. A small birthday party in the corner. And a private event had been scheduled for the back dining room later that evening. Some kind of charity function. A big one. The details had not been shared with most of the floor staff yet. All Daniel knew was that a VIP party was coming in later. The back section was completely off limits until further notice. And he was not supposed to seat anyone back there under any circumstances. Now here is the thing about Jackie Chan that most people do not think about. When he is not on a movie set, when he is not doing press tours, when he is not walking a red carpet, he does not look like a movie star. He has said this himself many times in interviews. He likes plain clothes, comfortable shoes. He does not wear flashy jewelry. He does not travel with a massive entourage every single time he steps outside. He once told a reporter that the best part about being in a new city is walking around without being recognized. Just being a normal person for a few hours. That is who walked into Maison Lune that Tuesday night. Jackie was in Vancouver for a film shoot. He had arrived a full day early. His team was still getting set up at the hotel. The charity dinner scheduled for later that evening at the restaurant was actually his event. His own foundation had organized the whole thing. But Jackie came to the restaurant early, alone, because he wanted to see the space with his own eyes before the guests arrived. Maybe sit down, have a quiet bite to eat. He walked in through the front entrance. No reservation under his name yet because his assistant handled those details. No entourage, no publicist at his side. Just a man in a gray shirt who smiled politely at the hostess and pointed toward the back dining room. She hesitated. She was about to check the book when Daniel appeared from the side. And Daniel did exactly what Daniel always did. He sized the man up in 3 seconds. Plain shirt, no watch, beat-up sneakers, no reservation. Verdict delivered instantly. Wrong place. He did not ask the man his name. He did not check the reservation book. He did not look twice. He walked right up to the table, squared his shoulders, and told the man to leave. Not with a sneer, not with obvious rudeness, just with that cool, practiced authority that people like Daniel mistake for professionalism. Jackie looked up at him, did not say a word. just sat there with his hands folded on the table. That silence should have told Daniel everything. But Daniel was not listening. He was already looking past the man, already thinking about the next table, the next tip, the next big spender who might walk through the door. He had absolutely no idea what was about to hit him. Jackie raised one hand. Not in protest. Not in frustration. He raised it the way you would signal a friend across a crowded room. Slow, calm, easy. And he said 5 words. Could I have some water? That is it. That is all the man asked for. A single glass of water. Daniel almost laughed. He tilted his head to the side, the way people do when they think someone has not understood the situation. Sir, I already told you. This section is reserved for a private event. I cannot serve you here. Jackie did not stand up. He kept both hands flat on the table. I understand, he said quietly. But could I just have a glass of water while I wait? Now, a smarter man would have paused here. A smarter man would have thought about it for a second and realized something was off. This guy is not leaving. He is not raising his voice. He is not embarrassed. He is completely relaxed in a restaurant where an appetizer costs $40. Maybe I am missing something here. But Daniel was not that man. Not yet. He leaned in closer to the table and lowered his voice. Sir, I am going to have to ask you to move to the front waiting area, or I will need to get the manager involved. Jackie nodded once. Very calm. Okay, he said. Get the manager. That threw Daniel completely off balance. Because most people, when you threaten them with the manager, they fold. They get flustered. They grab their things and leave. But this man just said, okay. Like Daniel had offered him a cup of coffee. No fear. No embarrassment. Nothing. Daniel turned on his heel and walked toward the back hallway of the restaurant. He spotted Marie, the floor manager, near the service station and waved her over. There is a guy sitting in the reserved section, he told her, keeping his voice low. No reservation. Casual clothes. Will not leave. I think he might be lost or confused. Marie looked over Daniel's shoulder toward table 9. She squinted slightly. Then something happened to her face. It was subtle, but Daniel caught it. Her lips parted. Her eyes went wide for just a second. Then she grabbed his forearm. Daniel, she said very quietly. Do you know who that is? He shrugged. Some guy who wandered in. Marie squeezed his arm harder. That is Jackie Chan. The words landed between them like a brick dropped on a glass table. Daniel blinked. He turned and looked back at the man sitting at table 9. The same man. The same gray shirt. The same calm expression. Still sitting there. Still waiting for his glass of water. The next 60 seconds moved fast. Marie walked straight to the table, already apologizing before she even reached it. Mr. Chan, I am so sorry. There has been a complete misunderstanding. Please forgive us. She waved urgently to the bartender for water. She pulled the chair out properly. She straightened the tablecloth. She asked if he needed anything at all. Jackie smiled. Not a big dramatic smile. Not a fake one for show. Just a small, real, genuine smile. I am fine, he said. I just wanted to sit and relax for a little bit before the dinner tonight. Marie nearly tripped over her own feet. Of course. Absolutely. Whatever you need. Please. Daniel stood frozen near the service station about 20 feet away. His hands were trembling. Not from fear exactly. From the slow, creeping, awful realization of what he had just done. He had told one of the most famous men on the entire planet to get out of the restaurant. He had snapped his fingers at him. He had pointed at the door like the man was a trespasser. Like he was nothing. Like he did not deserve to sit in a chair and drink a glass of water. And Jackie had not raised his voice once. Had not pulled rank. Had not said, "Do you know who I am?" He had just asked for a glass of water. That was the detail that kept repeating in Daniel's mind. A glass of water. The simplest request a person can make in a restaurant. And Daniel had refused it. The rest of the staff figured it out fast. A busboy whispered something to a line cook in the kitchen. The hostess leaned over to the bartender up front. Within 5 minutes, every single person on the floor knew what had happened. The man sitting calmly at table 9 was Jackie Chan, and Daniel Pratt had tried to throw him out of the restaurant. But here is where it looked like the whole thing might quietly blow over. Marie had everything under control. Jackie's water arrived. A bread basket followed right behind it. He ordered a light appetizer. He smiled warmly at the server who brought it to the table. He even complimented the music playing softly overhead. Asked what the song was. Daniel watched all of this from across the room. And for one brief, beautiful moment, he let himself believe the worst had passed. Jackie did not seem angry. Marie had not pulled Daniel aside for a formal talk. Nobody was yelling. It looked like a mistake that had been caught just in time and smoothly corrected. No harm done. Daniel poured a glass of wine for another table. He took a long, slow breath. He straightened his vest. He told himself he would find a quiet moment to apologize to Jackie later, maybe at the end of the shift, after the charity dinner was done. He even started rehearsing the words in his head. Something simple, something respectful. The tension in his chest began to loosen. He thought to himself, okay, I got lucky tonight. This is going to be fine. It is going to be just fine. It was not fine. A woman at the table directly next to Jackie's lifted her phone off the tablecloth. Not to make a call. Not to check a message. She held it up and turned it toward her friend sitting across from her. They both looked at the screen. Then they both looked at Daniel. Then back at the screen. She had been recording. From the very first moment Daniel snapped his fingers and pointed at the door. The entire exchange. His voice. His posture. His body language. Jackie sitting there calm and still with his hands folded. All of it. Captured on video. And she had already posted it online. Believe me, this is where the whole story changes direction. Within 5 minutes, Daniel's face was on the internet. The clip was short, maybe 15 seconds, but it was absolutely devastating. You could hear Daniel's voice clearly. This section is reserved, sir. You need to leave. You could see Jackie sitting there, perfectly still, not a trace of anger on his face, hands folded on the white tablecloth. The woman had captioned it, "Waiter kicks Jackie Chan out of restaurant. Jackie does not even flinch." It spread fast. Restaurant workers shared it with each other. Jackie Chan fans shared it across every platform. News aggregator accounts picked it up within the hour. People who had nothing to do with the restaurant or with Jackie Chan were sharing it just because the clip was so clean and so damning. 15 seconds of a man being dismissed for how he looked. 15 seconds of that same man sitting perfectly still and refusing to be rattled by it. By the time Daniel even realized something was wrong, the video had already been viewed by tens of thousands of people and the number was climbing by the minute. Marie found him in the back hallway near the kitchen. Her face had changed again. She did not look angry anymore. She looked afraid. "The owner is on his way in," she said. He saw the video. Daniel's stomach dropped. "It is already that bad?" Marie grabbed both of his shoulders. "Daniel, tonight's charity dinner. The one in the back dining room. That is Jackie Chan's event. His foundation organized the entire thing. The owner has been planning this partnership for months. This booking is worth over $200,000 to us. If you are still with me on this story, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Because we are nowhere near the end of this." The owner's name was Richard Bellamy. He arrived about 20 minutes later. He did not come through the front entrance. He came through the kitchen door in the back, which meant he did not want to be seen arriving. That was a very bad sign. Richard was a tall man in his mid-60s. Silver hair. Quiet voice. He had built Maison Lune from nothing over 30 years in the restaurant business. And the very first thing he did when he walked in was look at the reservation book. Then he looked at Daniel. Then he looked at Marie's phone, where the video was still playing on a loop. "How?" Richard said. "Just the one word. Nothing else." Daniel tried to explain. He talked about the reserved section, about the man's clothes, about how there was no reservation, about how he did not recognize Jackie Chan out of context. But every single sentence he spoke made it worse. Because underneath all the excuses, what he was really saying was simple. "I judged a man by the way he looked. and I was completely wrong. Richard did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He spoke very quietly. Do you understand what is at stake here tonight? This dinner raises money for children's hospitals across Southeast Asia. Jackie Chan's foundation has been coordinating with us for 3 months. And right now, at this very moment, his publicist is on the phone with my business partner asking whether they should pull the event and move it to a different venue. That sentence landed like a fist to the chest. This was not about Daniel's pride anymore. It was not even about the restaurant's reputation or a bad review online. This was about sick children who would not receive funding if the dinner collapsed. The nature of the conflict had changed completely. It was no longer personal. It was bigger than Daniel. Bigger than the restaurant. It was real. Daniel stood in that hallway with absolutely nothing to say. Richard pulled out his phone and stepped away to make a call. Daniel could hear pieces of the conversation through the kitchen noise. We sincerely apologize. We will make this right. Whatever Mr. Chan's team needs from us. When Richard hung up, he turned back to Daniel. His expression was not angry. It was tired. Deeply tired. The kind of tired that comes from watching someone make a mistake you cannot fix for them. Jackie's team says he is willing to stay for the dinner, but he has one condition. Daniel's mouth went dry. What condition? He wants to talk to you, personally, before the event begins. Daniel felt the ground shift underneath him. Talk to me? Why? I do not know. That is what he asked for. Daniel nodded slowly. He did not have a choice. And honestly, this was the part that scared him more than anything else. More than the video. More than the owner. More than losing his job. It was the thought of sitting across from the man he had disrespected and looking him in the eye and facing what he had done with no excuse left to hide behind. The back dining room had been cleared. 2 chairs. 1 table. A white tablecloth. Jackie was already sitting when Daniel walked in. He had changed into a dark blazer for the evening event, but he still wore the same sneakers. Daniel noticed that detail immediately. He noticed everything now. Jackie gestured to the empty chair across from him. Sit down. Daniel sat. His hands were in his lap. He could not bring himself to look up. He opened his mouth to start apologizing and Jackie stopped him with a raised hand. Before you say anything, Jackie said, let me tell you something first. This is the part that changed everything. Jackie leaned back in his chair and told Daniel a story. It happened in the early 1980s. Jackie was young back then. He was becoming well known in Hong Kong, but he was still nobody in the United States. He had traveled to Los Angeles for a meeting with a producer. An important meeting. The kind of meeting that could change the entire direction of his career if it went well. He arrived early. He went to the restaurant where the meeting was supposed to happen. He sat at the bar and waited for the producer to arrive. He was dressed simply. No suit. No jewelry. Just a regular guy sitting at a bar. The bartender ignored him. For 20 straight minutes. Other people came in after Jackie and were served immediately. Jackie raised his hand twice. Nothing. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. Finally, the bartender leaned across the bar and said, we do not really serve food at the bar. You might want to try the place down the street. Jackie paused and looked at Daniel. You know what the worst part was? His voice was polite. It was not rude. It was not aggressive. It was just dismissive. Like I was not worth the effort of being rude to. Daniel sat very still. I left the restaurant, Jackie continued, and I almost did not go back. I walked 2 blocks before I turned around. If I had kept walking, if I had missed that meeting, I would not be sitting in this chair right now. That meeting changed my life, and I almost let a bartender's judgment take it away from me. Daniel finally looked up. You remind me of that bartender, Jackie said. He was not being cruel. He was not trying to wound Daniel. He was just being honest. He was not a bad person. He just decided who I was before he gave me a chance to show him. And you did the same thing tonight. The silence in that small room was not uncomfortable. It was just full. Full of everything that had happened that evening sitting between 2 people at a table. Then Jackie said something Daniel would carry with him for the rest of his life. I am not angry at you. I have been you. Not the waiter version. But I have looked at someone and decided I already knew their whole story before they spoke a single word. Everyone does it at some point. The question that matters is what you do after you realize you were wrong. Jackie leaned forward in his chair. Here is what I would like from you tonight. During the dinner, I want you to work the room. Not just the VIP tables. Every single table. The guests who look important and the guests who do not. I want you to treat every person in this restaurant tonight like they could be anyone in the world. Because they could be. Daniel swallowed hard. His voice was rough when he spoke. You still want me to serve tonight? After what I did? Jackie smiled. It was a real smile. I want you to serve tonight because I think you are going to be a different person after this. And I would much rather see that than see you punished. The charity dinner started at 8 o'clock. 42 guests filled the back dining room. Donors, business executives, a few well-known actors, some local politicians, and scattered among them, at Jackie's specific request, were a dozen guests from a nearby community center. Regular people. People who had never set foot in a place like Maison Lune before. People in simple clothes. People who looked exactly like the man Daniel had tried to throw out just 2 hours earlier. Daniel served every single one of them. And not with guilt. Not with the stiff performance of a man trying to prove something. With genuine attention. He refilled glasses without being asked. He remembered complicated orders without writing them down. He crouched down beside an elderly woman who had trouble hearing and spoke softly so she could understand the specials. He brought extra bread to a table of nervous teenagers who clearly had never been to a restaurant like this before. At the end of the evening, Jackie stood up to give a brief speech. He thanked the donors for their generosity. He spoke about the children's hospitals his foundation was building. And then he said something that made the entire room fall silent. I want to thank the staff here tonight, Jackie said, and especially one young man who reminded me tonight of why I do this work. Because every person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, even when the world tells them they do not look the part. He did not say Daniel's name. He did not have to. Daniel was standing near the kitchen door at the back of the room, holding a tray of empty wine glasses, and for the first time all night, he felt everything that had happened settle into something that was not shame anymore. It was clarity. The video did not disappear. Things like that never really go away once they hit the internet. For a few weeks, Daniel Pratt was the waiter who kicked Jackie Chan out of a restaurant. People left comments underneath the video. Thousands of them. Some were vicious. Some were surprisingly funny. And a few were actually thoughtful. One comment near the top read, "We have all been that waiter at some point. Most of us just never got caught on camera." Richard Bellamy did not fire Daniel. He considered it seriously. He told Daniel weeks later that he had sat alone in his office for over an hour that night, going back and forth, weighing the options. But Jackie's team had called after the dinner ended that evening and said the event had been a complete success. Better than expected, actually. And the publicist mentioned that Jackie had specifically asked that no disciplinary action be taken against the waiter. That request carried enormous weight with Richard. So Daniel kept his job. But he was different after that night. The 3-second rule was gone. He stopped sizing people up the moment they walked in. Or if he caught himself doing it out of habit, he stopped. He paused. He overrode the instinct. He started asking every guest their name when they sat down. Not because the restaurant required it. Not because it was policy. Because he genuinely wanted to know who was sitting at his table. He started treating the quiet Tuesday night couples with the same warmth and energy he gave to the flashy Saturday night high rollers. He stopped looking at shoes. He stopped looking at watches. He started looking at faces. Now, I know that sounds simple when you just say it out loud like that. But if you have ever worked in an industry where your income depends directly on who ends up in your section, you know exactly how hard that shift really is. The instinct to sort people by what they look like. By what you think they are going to spend, by whether they seem like they belong. That instinct gets trained into you over months and years. Daniel had to untrain himself, and it took real time and real effort. About 3 months after the incident, Daniel received a letter at the restaurant. Not an email. A physical letter on heavy paper with a foundation letterhead. It was from Jackie Chan's foundation. The letter explained that they were opening a new hospitality training center in Hong Kong. The center was part of Jackie's broader philanthropic work with underprivileged young adults across Asia. It would train young people who came from difficult backgrounds for real careers in restaurants, hotels, and the service industry. Good careers. Careers with dignity. And they were looking for someone from a Western fine dining background to help build out the service training curriculum. The letter asked if Daniel would be interested in applying for the position. He read it 3 times. Then he sat down on the bench in the break room and did not move for 10 minutes. Now here is what you need to understand about this offer. It was not charity. It was not a reward. And it was not a handout to make Daniel feel better about himself. It was something closer to a test. Jackie's team had been paying attention in the months after the incident. They had followed up with the restaurant quietly. They had asked Marie how Daniel was doing, how his behavior had changed, whether it was real or just a show. They had seen the online comments and noticed that Daniel never responded publicly. He never defended himself. He never attacked the woman who posted the video. He never made excuses. He just went quiet and did his job differently. Day after day, table after table. That silence told them everything they needed to know about who he was becoming. Daniel applied for the position. He got it. He moved to Hong Kong 4 months later. The training center opened in a converted warehouse near the waterfront. Daniel helped design the entire service curriculum from the ground up. He taught young people how to carry plates without trembling, how to read a room, how to pronounce wine names they had never heard before, and most importantly, how to make any person, regardless of how they looked or dressed or spoke, feel genuinely welcome in the first 5 seconds of sitting down. On the very first day of the very first training class, Daniel stood in front of 20 young students and told them a story. He told them about a night in Vancouver when a man in a gray shirt and a pair of worn-out sneakers walked into a fine dining restaurant and sat down at a table. He told them how he looked at that man and decided instantly that he did not belong. And he told them everything that happened after. He did not leave out the embarrassing parts. He did not soften a single detail. He told the whole thing. When he finished, he said, "The most important skill you will ever learn in this line of work is not how to carry a tray or open a bottle of wine. It is how to see the person sitting in front of you for who they actually are, not what they look like." The room was quiet for a moment. Then a young woman in the front row raised her hand. "Did you ever see Jackie Chan again after that night?" Daniel smiled. "He was at the opening of this center. He shook my hand. And he was wearing the same sneakers." The whole room laughed, and in that laugh something landed. Not a lesson exactly, not a moral, something lighter and more honest than that. Just a feeling, the feeling that people really can change. That a single terrible mistake does not have to be the final chapter of your story. That sometimes, the worst night of your life can become the thing that makes you into someone worth being. There is a photograph from the opening day of the training center. It hangs in a frame on the wall behind the reception desk. Jackie Chan and Daniel Pratt, standing side by side, both smiling. Jackie in a plain black t-shirt, Daniel in a pressed white uniform. And if you look very closely at the bottom of the frame, you can see Jackie's shoes. The same worn-out sneakers. That photo is still hanging there today. Every new student who walks through the doors sees it on their first day. Most of them do not know the story behind it yet. But eventually Daniel tells them. He always tells them. Because he finally understands something that he did not understand that night in Vancouver. The way you treat someone when you think nobody is watching. When you think it does not matter. When you think they are nobody. That is who you really are. And if you are lucky, really truly lucky, you get one chance to become someone better.